Welcome to Casual Politics, Sir Alan Duncan. Thank you very much for accepting my request and doing this interview for Casual Politics, and I'm very grateful to you. I know you need no introduction. You've been in Parliament for more than 20 years. You've been Shadow Secretary for Business from 2005 to 2009, and then then you became Shadow Leader of the House of Commons. And after the general election, David Cameron appointed you as the Minister for Development until the reshuffle in 2014, June. So my first question is, when was your finest hour as a Minister for Development?
First thing, I ought to appoint you as my official biographer. You know everything about me. I think for development, it was really underpinning the Palestinian Authority and making sure that a third of the population of Yemen did not starve. But in the course of my time as the Minister for International Development, there were lots of things, and particularly the explosion of need in the Arab world, mostly in Syria, but spilling over into Lebanon and Jordan. So I had all of the responsibilities outside sub-Saharan Africa, and it suddenly became very busy, but it was a very fulfilling 4 years.
And in which ways it was challenging your role?
I think the thing about development is we had a rising budget at the time, which is now levelled off. But it meant that we had as a minister, I had a lot of flexibility about where I could spend money. And that was lucky because the world was changing very fast, and you needed to be able to just suddenly redirect money to an earthquake or to Syria or to Yemen or Palestine, whatever it was. And we had the elbow room to be able to do that when I was there. So it was very exciting because it meant that instead of just administering what was going on anyway, I could take decisions to change things and redirect them.
And to what extent do you think that the United Kingdom has kept its promise to spend 0.5% of its GDP for foreign aid?
0.7%. Yes. And you say to what extent? 100% is the answer, because we're the first serious economy to not just promise to spend 0.7% of our government spending, or no, of our national income on this, but we've done it. So we have actually delivered a 0.7 commitment, which the United Nations and NGOs and everyone interested in development has been campaigning for 40 years. So we're the first.
So the cuts didn't affect it?
No, we had an increase, it's a couple of billion. So some people say, cut international development spending and we can solve the health problem, the education problem, the defense problem, welfare problem. But actually, it is only 0.7% of national income, so it's just over 1% of government spending. And you can't solve every other area's problems by taking this small percentage and thinking if you spent it somewhere else, everything else would be okay. It's still relatively small, and most of it we'd have to do anyway. The World Bank, the IMF, earthquakes, typhoons, basic poverty. We'd be doing that anyway, even if you didn't have a department and a spending promise.
I know that you were not the Minister for Development during Ebola crisis, but did the United Kingdom had a leading role?
Yes is the answer. I think that whereas the United Nations were there saying, look, there's a problem coming, we were probably the first country to commit serious resources to address the problem, many millions. And we deployed people and money and resources to make the response efficient and capable. So once again, not only I think are we intellectual leaders in the world of development, we are primary actors in taking steps to address the problems we see.
And do you think that health organizations as well, they had a leading role, or no, less than that?
No, they do. The World Health Organization, of course, is very, very important. And I think what we see is that the world of development, responding to problems like this, works at its best when it works together. And we're quite good at being the sort of ringmaster to make people work together.
And because you were the shadow business secretary from 2005 and 2009, so why didn't you remain as the shadow business secretary and then become the shadow business secretary? Why was it?
I'm not the person to ask. In politics, everybody moves around. New leaders, new prime ministers say, "I want you to do something different," and it's.
But you did it during 4 years.
Sure, and I enjoyed doing it, but actually I think international development was the best Minister of State job in government.
And if you had become under assumptions, the business secretary, would you have sold off shares of the Royal Mail?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yes, I would. It needs to be a commercial organisation. I mean, we've learned from the past that nationalised industries never raise capital. They become more inefficient. They get stuck in their ways and they fade away and don't deliver. They become a problem. And the whole world of communications and delivery and logistics is changing very rapidly. And I think Royal Mail has to be part of that, but it doesn't have to be owned by the government in order to be good within that system.
But the workers of the Royal Mail, they didn't take any benefits from this
I don't think they did. I think they will. I think they had share options and things, so they did have benefit. And although I think they are facing competitive strain at the moment, particularly in urban areas where there are competing delivery systems, they do stand to benefit from a successful Royal Mail.
There have been rumours of that government, they want to privatize the student loans. So do you think if they do it, will it be successful?
I don't know. I think I'm always sceptical about the wisdom of selling off a loan book. I mean, if you have a loan system to the government, it either works or it doesn't. So it's an accounting exercise, but the trouble is it can then become a difficult administrative exercise. So I'm not sure this in the end would be wise.
A month ago, the House voted for the existence of the Palestinian state alongside the Israeli state. So do you think that just a new chapter, it's a new chapter for United Kingdom's foreign affairs?
I think so, because it's the first time that Parliament has been asked to express that opinion in a vote. And although those who did not want to recognise Palestine said, "Oh, it doesn't matter, let's stay away," the fact is the vote was significant, it was in favour of recognition, and the rest of the world noticed. And I think this is part of a gradual movement towards a better understanding of the justice that is lacking for the Palestinian people, and the fact that Israel is building on land which does not belong to them. And that is the moral basis of the argument, and really anyone forming a view needs to look at that as their starting point.
But why only half of the MPs they turn up to vote on this matter that was very obviously a very important issue?
Yeah, but it's the way Parliament goes. It wasn't official government business, it was backbench business, it was a one-line whip. You need to understand Parliament in order to understand the numbers.
And the Conservatives, they are well known for, because most of them, they're friends of Israelis than Palestinians. So are you only few of Conservative backbenchers that was in favour of this vote?
I haven't counted them all up, but no, there are quite a lot. And I think your question is interesting because I think what's true is that opinion is changing. And I think Israel is losing its friends. And there was one very significant speech which pointed that out very strongly. And you cannot break international law, have constant demolitions, occupy someone else's country in perpetuity, and continue to be popular, or indeed be said to hold the moral high ground. And they're losing all of those things.
And you were critical of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Why?
Because they're illegal. It's stealing someone else's land, stealing someone else's country. It is aggressive annexation, and it's not right.
And now, talking about the general election, do you think that David Cameron should stop banging on immigration and then now talking about economies, because there are good news?
We should talk about the economy. There is good news. We've held the economy together after Labour endangered it, because all Labour governments run out of money. They always do. Then they try and blame somebody else. So we've held the economy together, and that has been the main purpose and success of the coalition. I think on immigration, I think this is a meaningless argument at the moment, a meaningless debate, because the word immigration can mean anything to anybody, and because it means everything, it means nothing. But until you break down the word and explain whether you're talking about students coming in, or asylum seekers, or people who want to work and then go home again, or people who want to work but also bring their families who need to go to schools and have a house, no, until you work out what sort of immigration you're talking about, any debate about immigration is utterly meaningless. And so, when we talk about net immigration, it doesn't mean enough to be credible until you break down the various components of immigration and work out and say what you think are the good bits of it and what you think are the less good bits of it.
Well, David Cameron pledged to reduce the net numbers of immigrants to tens of thousands, but he didn't succeed in it. So do you think it was a failure for the government?
I think it's a failure of intellectual clarity. And we need to go back and, as I was saying just now, break down the various meanings of immigration and say clearly which parts of it we favour and which we don't. And then you can begin to develop, I think, serious policy which people understand and can either believe in or not.
And are you confident that David Cameron will succeed in it?
Well, I think it's something we need to do. I'm going to press for it soon, but let's see.
And because Conservatives, if they want to win at the next general election, they should do a presidential election. And because the party, the leader of the party is very popular amongst the electorate, but not the party. And whereas the Labour Party, that the party is very popular, but not the leader.
I think your analysis is right. All elections have become increasingly presidential because they focus on the leader fighting another leader. But we are a parliamentary system, not a presidential system. And also the party system, which for 150 years has underpinned the leaders who present themselves for election, is fragmenting, it's falling to pieces. We might have 6 parties, forgetting the Northern Irish for the moment, winning seats in, forgetting the Welsh Nats as well, in England and Scotland. Conservative, Labour, Scottish Nationalists, Liberal Democrats, UKIP and Green. This is a new picture.
And my last question is that what do you think that the Conservatives would secure a better Britain as your slogan for after the next general election?
I think it's all about having a serious long-term economic plan where we look not just a year ahead, but 10 or 20 years ahead or more, and say we want Britain to be a low-tax economy where people can pay their way, where pensions are properly funded, where public services have a good economic base to pay for the public services, and where we do not get into ever-growing debt. That's what we stand for. Labour stands for the opposite. That's why they, and you, and everybody ought to vote for us on May the 7th.
And hope that will. Well, thank you very much for your time, Sir Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks
very much.
Pleasure.